Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Hey, my name's Tom Dutta. I am the Quiet Warrior, and we got a real treat for you today. And I think before we get into the show and introduce our incredible guest, I have a special video I'd like you to take a look at, and I'll get that going in a minute. But first of all, we're live streaming. And what is live streaming? Well, we're interrupting the airwaves on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You'll be able to subscribe to my show. Just click the button and subscribe to the Tom Dutta YouTube channel, because we'll be producing this into a YouTube premiere in the future. We'll also be releasing it as a live podcast across an international network called the Quiet Warrior Show. So without further ado, I want to show you a special video that I found. Let's just watch this together, and then I'll bring on and introduce our guest. Stand by, everybody.
If conforming to the world was exploring the world? What if the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, little girl, turns into how many streets of life have you to explore? What if the purpose of life is not to die with the most toys to leave our squabbling relatives? What if the purpose of life was to do things that we enjoy most of the time? Have relationships that we enjoy most of the time, and use our unique talents, gifts, and abilities to fully express in the dash between birth and death. What if, as a direct result of this horrible pandemic, we could rise out of the ashes with a new PPP, post-pandemic possibilities? The sooner you turn "it's impossible" to "I'm possible," the what ifs become possible too. Because you are loving, lovable, and loved, wrapped in a warm blanket of worthiness. But it may start with getting out of bed and making
something happen.
What if starts with
Wow. I don't know about you, everybody, but did you just get inspired by all that? I mean, I was just shivering. I tell you, the PPP, the post-pandemic possibilities, I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. So let me tell you a little bit about the guest, and we'll bring her on in a moment. Dr. Marissa Pei. Now, I found out she's a Canadian. So, hey, Dr. Pei, I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. Dr. Pei was born in Toronto. I also had this fun little riff with her name. PEI is spelled PEI, and that's a part of Canada, Prince Edward Island. So there's so many connections here to this amazing guest. Let me tell you a bit about the background, though. She's a celebrity host, the 2016 Podcast of the Year. So she's a professional podcast host. Take my advice on not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. Check that out. Find it on your podcast channel, everybody. Subscribe to it. I'm excited that she's an organizational psychologist, and she consults and speaks all over the world. In fact, this lady is known as a global thought leader, and I just love how she helps people become happy 88% of the time. We'll find out more about that. Notable people that she's interviewed: Dr. Gray. This one got my attention. Marianne Williamson. Remember Gilligan's Island? I remember watching that as a kid. John Travolta. Oh, my goodness. She's won many awards: 2020 Excellence in Media Radio, 2016 Lotus Award, 2014 Asian Heritage Award, 2012 Asian Entrepreneur of the Year, 2017 Iconic Woman. And she has some pretty cool stuff, balance tools, a couple things that I'll talk about in a bit with her. And I'm really excited that we'll talk about a special book that she's just brought out. It has become #1 on 8 bestseller lists, #1 on Amazon. My goodness, I could go on and on and on. Here's the cool thing. On the stock ticker, you might see the Asian Oprah. Might have stopped you in your tracks. Apparently, she was introduced to Oprah as the Asian Oprah. So now I got your attention. Let's bring on Dr. Marissa Pei. Hey, Dr. Pei, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show.
Thank you so much, Tom Dutta, for inviting me and reading that great introduction that I wrote.
Yeah, you look marvelous. I knew we were going to have fun because I already started giggling and laughing before I even brought you on. I want to just tell everybody that we met through a connection. We have a mutual publisher out of New York, Morgan James, and so I'm just grateful to meet you. So you know what? Let's have fun. I want to start with, this is about the hero's journey, just talking about life and story. Take us back. Where did this all start? I mean, how did you get into the line of work you're in? And I think it started back in your childhood as well.
Absolutely. I think like everyone, all 7.3 billion of us, we are currently what our life experiences chiseled us to. And so I, like everyone else, followed the Canadian or American dream, whichever one you want to call it. I was actually born in Kitchener-Waterloo, so not Toronto. I don't want my KW peeps to be set on owning Toronto. But I was born in a small town. It had the largest German settlement outside of Germany in Kitchener. And I grew up obviously, if you're looking at me and you thought I was Swedish, I'm actually Chinese. And so I learned very early on that I looked different and differences were not exactly a good thing. So I, discovered how cruel people can be. I discovered how complicated it was being born in the Western world to immigrant parents from China. I discovered how difficult a tiger mom on steroids is, who would call me fat, ugly, and clumsy because in her mind, she was motivating me to not be fat, ugly, and clumsy by telling me I was. I grew up knowing that in order to be special, I had to perform and achieve. So I became an overachiever very early. I wanted to be the first to do this and the youngest to do that. And that went on for some decades. And I reached a point where everything that was supposed to make me happy, right? So American dream, you go to school, you get good grades, you get a good job, you work your way up, you find a person, you marry them, you have children, they grow up, you put them through, you retire and then die with the most toys. I mean, that's the short form. As well as Snow White and Cinderella, I'll be happy when I find that one person and live happily ever after. And when I do speaking and I'm on stage, I have people at this point look at me in the eye and say, guess what? There is no happily ever after. So I guess the journey was a couple of decades ago, I realized that the traditional trajectory into happiness was not working. And as we've seen with the unfortunate deaths of Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade, the other promise of fame and fortune also may not bring you happiness. So that's kind of how I was birthed into this world from personal experience.
Well, Dr. Pei, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. I know you do this a lot, of course, and I have to honor you and say we love you for doing that, because being vulnerable and sharing a painful part of life, the reality is that I've learned is a lot of people won't talk about that part of their story. I have a couple things I want to tell you because you touched my heart. I read your book. We'll talk a lot about that too. That, when I was reading your book and I read that story you told about growing up and being different. And thanks for pointing out your Chinese, by the way. That was pretty tough to tell, although that amazing outfit you're wearing kind of gave me a clue. I was actually saying that if you're the Asian Oprah, what am I, the South Asian quiet warrior? I mean, there's a little bit of a connection going on. Yep. But I read the book and I stopped in my tracks. And, I talk openly about this now. I am a CEO executive type guy, and I've spent my life in business, but I was called fat and ugly when I was a kid by, sadly, not just one or two, but 4 members of my family, the people that were supposed to nurture me. And I went into life and I found out earlier in my career that I became an overachiever. My father, who's passed away a few years ago, was a chronic alcoholic. So I grew up as a command and control brat. And my dad left home when I was 12. And remember, he wrote us all a letter and it said a bunch of things. I never forget. It was in Sharpie marker, like my dad used to write big words. and he left, and my mom and dad, everything went away. But I went into the real world, and I didn't know until I started, studying myself and learning from people like you, that I had these thinking traps. One of them was, I'm not good looking, I'm not good enough, I overachieved. So when I read that book, I went, wow, this is amazing. I mean, there's so many of us out there who are running the world in high levels of society. And yet I don't believe that a lot of people really understand why they do what they do. And so I want to ask you to help us get into the book a little bit. I don't know if you have it with you there to hold up. There it is. The title is, what's the title of that book? Is 8 Ways to Happiness from Wherever You Are. Dr. Pei, there's a bunch of tools and exercises in there that I made some breakthroughs. I just want to say thank you for that. So tell us, if you grew up or you have some type of, you call it shiitake, something from the past, give us some tools and tips on how to navigate, how to discover, and if you are like you and I, where we've had that experience, how do you move past that and be happy? Any advice?
Any advice? Do cows give milk?
How much time do we have?
Yes, I'm so shy. I have nothing to say. Sarcasm is another service I offer.
I love that.
So the first thing I would say is, what's interesting, what hit me was 7 out of 10 of us. Psychological research says 7 out of 10 of us have had childhood trauma. 7 out of 10. That means, Tom, that
Wow.
you and I are the majority. My honorable moniker, Oprah, says it's as high as 8 out of 10. Some psychologists will venture to say it's 94%. That's the majority. So if the majority of us have had childhood trauma, then why does the majority that usually rules, why does this majority think that there's something wrong with us? So that's the first thing. If you've had childhood trauma, that message that there's something wrong with you and that you'll never catch up and that you'll never be good enough and that you'll never, catch up to those who had a healthy, that's bull shiitake. And that's the very first step, is to let go of that definition of who you are, that broken definition that you need to get fixed, that there's something wrong with you, that you'll never be enough. So that is the hardest step, because for many who had childhood trauma, there's that question of how could I have been so ugly or badly behaved or, hurt so badly? What did I do as a child? And the message here is there was nothing you did as a child that deserved that. So that's the message. However, so it's not your responsibility to fix that. There's nothing to fix there. It happened. However, what is your responsibility is now your choice. Do you want to drag all of that emotional baggage that's in the oversized category for many of us who have had it? We drag all of that into our present, spew it into our future. That is our responsibility. And that message is all over the book. That's a foundational piece, that if you are someone who've had trauma, I want you to know that it's not what happened to you. It's what happened for you. And you'll say, Dr. Pei, come on, let's not play with words here. That was wrong. My mom shouldn't have done that. My father shouldn't have done that. I should not have been abused. I should not have been molested. You're absolutely right. You should not have been. However, it happened. So now you have a choice to be angry and resentful and drag that raft that you built when there were treacherous waters. You formed protection, rightfully so, as a child. So I learned not to listen. If I fully listened to what was being said to me, I'd be dead. So I learned how to not listen. Now, if I don't listen now, I'm in trouble. So that raft I had to cut. That coping mechanism I had to cut. But I had to start by understanding fundamentally that the lies that my critic tells me in my head, that I'm not good enough, that I'm unworthy, that pain in life is mandatory and life sucks, those are BS belief systems that keep us weighed down with that raft when there's no water here. So it's our responsibility to cut the ties to that raft. You have to deal with it. You can't, push garbage down and expect it to go away. You have to deal with the past pain. And that's why the book has exercises to help you with that. If you do the exercises in full, you'll never hate yourself the same way again. So the work is, how do we deal with what happened and turn it into, dig out the shiitake from that hole, right? And put it back as fertilizer to grow the seed of who you really are. You uniquely, one of a kind, wonderful, that we all are.
Yeah, it's amazing. I talk a lot about my dad. I just wanted to share a quick story again about that. I didn't know until my dad passed away, and I met with him for a coffee because we were estranged for about 10 years, Dr. Pei, that his childhood was as difficult as what I saw in mine. And my father came into the world and he was a golden child, but the way he learned to parent me was through his own experience. And it was at that point, and it was also through my faith, which I found just a few years ago because I denied it since I was a kid, that there was forgiveness and this whole weight came off my shoulder. But there's many people that in my coaching and work that I do with others that they're grown men particularly that haven't been able to get rid of that pain. So I love the message in your book, and that's such a foundation. There was one that really got my heart. I just love it. And it was about, I think you talked about your mom. And I'm going to be vulnerable here and ask you to work with me on this one, on the show, that, my mom's a wonderful lady. My mom endured so much difficulty because of the relationship she had with my father. They were married 32 years. And then my father left and she was homeless like I was. But the things that she said to me, I struggled for a long time trying to separate that. And even sitting in a room sometimes, I had this awful, like melting into an emotional puddle. And to today, I still think there's some work to be done to be able to reach that point where I can see what you said about your mom. So help me with that. I know there's some exercise in the book.
Yep. So if it's not one thing, it's your mother. And there's only two times, in your life you have no mother issues: when you're born and when you die. So you're not alone. So I love this term that Edwene Gaines uses. I saw her on the Agape stage. She says, your mother's only job is to pop you out. The rest is gravy. And as trite as that sounds, one of the reasons we have so much problem with our mother issues or relationships with mothers is the expectation. So the expectation that your mother's supposed to be your best friend, your mother's supposed to be, your biggest fan, that's bullshit hockey. Your mother does the very best that she can with the time that she has and the resources she has. So I want you to repeat that after me and see if that'll sink in the first time. If not, we're going to have to rinse and repeat after the show. This will be your mirror work. So my mother, Anitra.
My mother, Anitra,
does the very best that she can. If she could do better, she would. But she can't. She does the very best that she can. With the time that she has. And the resources she has. And her collective experience. Was not mine. And it was not all good.
And it was not all bad.
And it wasn't all bad. My work is to focus on what she could do instead of what she couldn't.
Oh, I just love that. And wow, I'm going to go back and listen to this right after. Everybody, just want us to pause here because, if you ever watched that, my favorite show growing up as a kid was the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and the part where he was about to go down into Whoville and his heart grew 3 times. as you were saying, we were talking, just the positivity of that, my heart started feeling that emotion in my soul. Now I'm going to steal the thunder. I'm going to recommend everybody again getting the book, 8 Ways to Happiness, from wherever you are, because in that book are some of these tools. And when I read that, Dr. Pei, some of this, I really started going back, and I wrote a review for you on Amazon for your book.
Thank
and
you.
Everybody, when you get the book, how authors get known for their new books is for us doing reviews. So please write a review, post it on Amazon.
Only
but I
if
remember
it's positive.
if it's no shiitakes. And by the way, I love that word you coined, so I'm using it more often now.
Well, what's funny, since we do have the same publisher,
yeah.
When I first wrote it, I used the real word, not the mushroom.
Okay. Yeah.
And David said, "Sorry, darling, we cannot publish it. You cannot use that word."
That's right.
And so I came back with shiitake, and whoever the rep was said that's not okay. And so I went to Dave and I said, "I'm sorry, there's no other word." And so he took a look at it and he goes, "You're right. There's no other word."
Absolutely.
So that's how we got in the book.
Yeah. Well,
Little
everybody's
side story. I don't think I've ever told that story before.
Well, thanks for telling that story. It's a book. It's a book full of many stories that will help you shovel away that shiitake. But in my review, I did write that I had a breakthrough, and that was one of the breakthroughs was about this. There was also another story in there, everybody, and I just wanted to say this quickly, that it was about somebody who had a father, I think, passing, and there was an exercise of writing, and then in his last days, sitting and reading. So I'm just, again, teasing everybody, get the book, because we don't have a lot of time to teach that on the show, but it's just amazing the things you have in that, the tools and the exercises. I want to just read something off your bio here so we can kind of riff on this, Dr. Pei. Happy 88 mission, helping 8 million more people be 88% happy in the next 8 years. Tell us about that. That's your mission.
So it's been updated because I've already hit 6 million. So that's not much of a challenge anymore. So it's now 88 million. So you may have noticed there's a lot of 8s and you're wondering why. So ask me, Tom.
Why are there so many 8s?
Good question. I'm so glad you asked me that. So as I said before, I'm not Swedish, I'm Chinese. In Chinese, in Mandarin, 8 is a homonym for good fortune. And so you'll notice in neighborhoods where there are a lot of Asians, they'll basically buy up all of the houses that have the number 8 in them because it's a well-known homonym. So fa and ba is good fortune. So 88% happy means you're double good fortune to be happy. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is one of the biggest robbers of happiness, one of the biggest reasons that people are not happy is if you're a perfectionist, and I already know you are, because anybody who has a podcast is a perfectionist, or no, yes. And you admitted you were overachiever.
I am one.
Yes. So, and if you're listening right now or later, if you're a person who says, "I am my own worst enemy, I'm not harder on anyone else than myself," and when I get 99 compliments, I get one insult, my mind goes straight to that insult. You are a perfectionist. You're an overachiever and you're a control freak. I'm sorry. Those are the labels. And the number one reason why you cannot be happy is because of those labels that you have embraced. So in our culture, there's something about, oh, I worked 80 hours. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a hard driver. And the problem with that is you say also, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I have this many listeners or this many likes or this job title or this car or this. I'll be happy when. And you're never happy because you keep moving the stupid when bar. So if you're hard on yourself, I have 2 words for you. Stop it. So the reason why I do
words received.
Yes. The reason why I do 88% and not, people say, why not 100% happy, Dr. Marissa? Because if you're 100% happy, there's no contrast, you're dead, right? You cannot be 100% happy. I don't like 99% because you're striving for that perfection. So I took the Chinese homonym, made it 88, and said, that's your good fortune. And it helps perfectionists understand that 88% is a point where I can just stop, take a breath in through the nose, and release. Do it with me. Soft shoulders, soft elbows, soft knees. Another deep breath in. And releasing the stories and the drama. One last deep breath in. Connecting with me through Chi, eternal energy, the breath of life, and release. Right now, don't you feel a little bit better than you did right before you started breathing? So this is 88%, to stop, look and listen to your heart, to your breath, to know that you're just okay. Right now, it's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. And if we get to that point, then we can be happy. But if we can't stop and just be and stop, do this, do that, do this, and end up in doo-doo, if we can't just stop and be, then we get the taste of what happiness is, which is your birthright.
That's amazing. Yes, I did actually, but the breathing, my shoulders fell, and there was a sense of relaxation. And I do embrace meditation and that type of breathing, and I love it. A little bit more back to my father. I changed the meaning of what happened in my childhood to this, and I think I've written it in part of my book that the demons of my father became my gifts. And actually, I believe that people like me and you are some of the strongest people on the planet because we have this resilience. And that when I started realizing that, that's when the forgiveness and all that came together for me. And it's like, thank you, Dad. What I went through gives me. Then I started looking at the things that I'm doing to help others. I'd be lost if I didn't have that gift. So thank you for that. The book talks a bit about mental health. I'm an advocate for that. I've been spending a lot of time volunteering, and I have a personal experience with that. Many of my listeners know 3 years ago, I fell in a bathtub and sustained a brain injury. Still recovering as we sit here now. I have double vision, and I slipped into depression, had my first suicidal thoughts in 2019. And they started putting me into cognitive behavioral therapy. And I learned a lot, Dr. Pei, a lot that I didn't know, especially about thinking traps and things like that were wired in me. Man, I got to tell you, I sat in a room with 14 people one day in my CBT class, cognitive behavioral therapy. And these people were very ill mentally, bipolar, depression. Some of them, the hardest thing was just getting into the room. And that's when I looked around and I said, man, my life's not that bad. But I really struggled. I ruminated at home for a whole year, had to see a psychiatrist and start getting well. One of the things I read in your book that I loved was there's this balance between, skills and tools and medication and all these things. So I think my dad had, my mom had anxiety, depression. My dad had it. Talk a little bit about that, the link to, happiness. And if somebody struggles with depression or anxiety, give us some of your thoughts on that.
You are not your diagnosis.
No.
That is the number one, is that so many people use their mental illness. That is real. I'm not saying that is not real, but they use it to define who they are, and they forget who they really are. We are all fundamentally expressions of the good in life. We are all precious children in a friendly universe. That's who we really are at the core of who we are. And when we come to the planet in this dash between birth and death, we have a choice. Einstein says the most important question that a human being has to answer is the universe friendly or not? If you choose to say that the universe is not friendly, that I got a bad break as a child, that I got a bad break, I got fired, I got betrayed, I got all of these things, and the universe is not friendly, if God was so good, if life was so good, then none of this would happen to me. Then you're choosing a life for the rest of your life. You're going to be waiting for the other shoe to drop. No matter what good happens, you're waiting for something bad to happen. Paranoia, not pronoia, waiting, wanting and looking for. You've got your arms crossed, okay? You're warding off anyone who might break your heart, who might hurt you, who might do those things. And The power of our mind is, if you choose an unfriendly universe, you will have a lifetime of crapola happen to you because of the power, not just of our mind. It's a magical box here. What we focus on grows bigger. That's the law of attraction. Now, you don't have to believe in the law of attraction. It's just like gravity. It works whether you believe it or not. And I'll just give you an easy example of this. When you decide on the car you want to buy, all of a sudden, everybody's driving that car. Like, what happened? Did they get the memo and get the car before me? No, that's the power of the law of attraction. What you attend to grows bigger. What you think about grows bigger. So if I choose Einstein's question and say it's unfriendly, you will actually see evidence of an unfriendly universe. That's the power. However, you also have a choice to choose a friendly universe. Why do I choose a friendly universe? Not because it's morally right, not because it's true, not because of any of those reasons. I choose a friendly universe every single day that I wake up because it just feels better. I choose to believe in a friendly universe. It didn't cause the pandemic, but the friendly universe did not have the planets crash into each other last night while I slept. I'm still alive. I have another day where I get to create and innovate and problem solve and laugh and respect and communicate and hug. Well, almost. All of those things that as a human being, I have choice. That is our biggest tool as a human being, is the C word. It's not commitment. It's not collaboration. It's not compromise. It's choice. And we as human beings have fundamentally abdicated our most powerful tool called choice to...
Yeah, that's right.
The news, which is actually the olds. My big brother, Michael Bernard Beckwith, who's the one who introduced me to Oprah, he calls media a weapon of mass distraction. Now, we're in media. We're trying to balance out the bad with the good. So not all media, but no one's pointing a gun to our head to focus on the things that we're focusing. But we abdicate our choice on a daily basis. If you wake up doing that, you've abdicated your choice. If you wake up with the news on, with the radio on, you're now letting your mind be hijacked to whatever is the most horrifying. If it bleeds, it leads, the worst possible scenario, the worst that people do, all of that. That's your choice. I plug my phone in another room because I don't trust myself. Because when I wake up, I go grab the phone. This way, I sit up instead and I take a bite of my gratitude sandwich. That's my diet. That's the Happy 88 menu. So every morning, I start with 8 specific things that I'm grateful for. Every night, I do 8 specific things that I appreciate about myself. That's a fundamental dis-ease that many of us have. We're all like this.
Yeah.
Who loves me? Who approves me? Who respects me? Who wants me? How many numbers do I have? You're looking for love in all the wrong places. You got the buck stops right over here. So if I build my muscle of choice to focus on what is good with me, what is good with you, and what is good with this world, I can't have a bad day.
I love that. The part I was talking about, the part about the 88s and all that, everybody, this was a teaching moment there. Come back to this part of the show and listen to what Dr. Pei taught us, the C word. It's a choice. And you know, I learned that. I had to learn that it's a choice, and still every day. And it's funny, the other day I had to go renew my phone online through my carrier, and I looked at my phone and it will show you, everybody, you can find how much time you spend on screen time. And it's remarkable how many times we do this and how much time you see people their heads down. Just fantastic. Dr. Pei, I know we have just a few minutes left to wrap here. I wanted to ask you about the really a topic that's dear to my heart. I know a family that has a young child around the age of 10, and I do understand brain science a fair amount about how the rational brain isn't as prevalent at that age. Everything's kind of black and white, and the parents are going through an ugly divorce, and the child is just crying and doesn't understand why their one parent isn't there. And I went through divorce with my parents, and I went through all of that. And later in life as an adult, I can rationalize and try to give advice to something like that. But talk to us about that for children, whether we're parents or whether we're in that as children. What can you tell us?
Everyone has the innate ability to find center, to find balance, to find peace. And sometimes that path is through hardship. Doesn't have to be, but sometimes it is. So again, going back to the mental health, if you define yourself as I'm depressed and that's who I am, then you, by your very definition, is bringing things to say, I'm depressed. If you're a child who's going through a life painful circumstance, I can either look at that as now I'm a damaged person, child, or I can see, oh, they're going through an alchemy right now. And as you pointed out before, children who've had trauma are uniquely gifted to be able to help others who are the majority that are going through that. So for children, when we think we know better as adults, when we think that we need to teach them, we automatically turn them away from understanding their own connection to the beautiful, friendly universe, that they can spend some time being chiseled. So I'll use this last story to close that highlights the importance of pain in life. So there's two rocks and they're in a store. And the one on the left gets no attention at all. Everybody walks in the door and they go straight for the right one. And it is so beautiful. Every day, the left one has to listen to, oh my God, that is so beautiful. Look at the way the light goes through in the prism. And oh, it's so beautiful. This goes on for 8 years. Finally, the rock on the left is pissed off, technical term, and jumps off his stand and takes his fist and says, life, get over here. Life, you are not fair. Every day for 8 years, I have to listen to all that bullshit talking about all that, how beautiful that rock is, blah, 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 and no one ever comes and says I'm beautiful. Life comes down, the skies part, puts his arm around that left rock and says, darling, I love you. But every time that I come down and start working on you with my chisel, you say, stop, it hurts, don't. I can't do anything. Moral of this story, pain in life is mandatory. Suffering is optional. Trust in a friendly universe that everything that we're going through, even as children, is for our divine best good. Would I change anything that has happened in my life, from the childhood trauma to a very expensive divorce, all of that, which is in the book? I wouldn't change a thing because it chiseled me into who I am now, which is 88% fabulous. Not 100% fabulous, but I'm 88% fabulous. And that is the gift of life for everyone. So for a child to help a child understand that they can create their own solution, that they can see whatever this shiitake is in their life. It's like an oyster. You know how an oyster makes a pearl? Because there's an irritant in the shell, piece of sand, that they mucus over and it becomes a beautiful pearl. This child is learning how to make pearls. So what can you, as a child, what are some thoughts that can make you feel better about this situation? That would be the best advice. Allow the child to develop the pearls and the understanding that it is not what happens to you, it is what happens for you. That.
What a great story. Get the book, everybody. It's in the book. You are a wonderful mentor and thought leader. I'll tell you, there's so much you've taught us today. I read in your bio you have two. You say it says she raises recovering teenagers. You've raised two children, and congratulations. You also race sailboats. So there's another side to you of so much fun.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say before we let you give a commercial about a couple things that it's been an honor to have you on the show, Dr. Pei. And thank you. I'd like to full screen again and have you hold up the book. So I want you to tell us where to get the book, get a hold of you. And also there's a longer video that I've said to the audience. Let's just get you on full screen there.
Great. So thanks, Tom, for having me on. And for any of you who watched that trailer, and we didn't really talk about it and are wondering, that's my first short film. It's the trailer to the new PPP, Post-Pandemic Possibilities. So before we run back to normal, as we're beginning to do, I want you to just pause and think about what you're doing and what you're going back to. Because most people were not happy with where they were or their relationships or what they were doing. So if you want to see the film, it is now part of my 501c. I have a new nonprofit called 8 Ways to Happiness, and it helps children, teens, and young adults who have temporarily forgotten their birthright to happiness. So for $8.88 donation, you get a copy of that film for you. And if you're a teacher, it would be great to spread that and to use it. I'm so grateful it's entered into 20 film festivals and getting really good initial rushes for that. I was actually one of the people who inspired me to do the poetry in that film is Amanda Gorman, when she was so wonderfully received at the inauguration. So if you get this book, you can get it at Amazon, Target, Walmart, everywhere. But if you get it from me and personalized, then I will give you, and just put in my, at drmarissa.life, put in Tom Dutta, and I will give you a free copy of my children's book that my daughters, when they were 5 and 7, did all the drawings. This is Scared. So it has every feeling, has a taste, touch, sight, and sound, especially if you're a parent that was told not to feel. Okay, so this is a helpful tool to help children express, which I would, let me just give you this to the family that you said, Tom, as a gift.
Thank you.
So $25 donation gets this book, but for all of your listeners that put Tom Dutta down, if you buy this personalized book, you will get a copy of that children's book. I am on, let's see, every Thursday at 4 and Saturday at 6 on my CNBC NBC News Radio channel, KCAA, with my show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. Now 475 consecutive weeks on the air. This next week, I'm having Hank Garrett, who was Where Are You, Car 52, if you remember that show. And, and he did the fight scene with Robert Redford in 3 Days on the Condor, which is to this day called the best fight scene ever. So there's many ways. I'm on Doc Balance on Instagram. I even have a TikTok channel now. Don't tell my daughters. So just Google Dr. Marissa. Stay in touch with me. Be part of my 88 million who I want 88% happy in the next 8 years. That's my mission.
All right, everybody. The website is on the stock ticker on the screen. Go back and listen to this or watch it when the premiere comes out on YouTube. Make sure you get a hold of that book and all the great stuff. Dr. Pei, to honor you, I got some physical workout next. I'm going to do 88 sit-ups just to honor you. And I want to say from all of us and bottom of my heart, thank you. There's so much you've taught us today. You're a gift to the world. So God bless you.
Thank you.
Everybody, find the true happiness that you see Dr. Pei has found. Find that purpose and that passion like you hear from her, and live the life that you deserve and desire. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace in, peace out.